Woman spends millions to rent presidential suite just to spy on her ex-husband. But outside her ex-husband's window across the building, there was a mental guy hanging out of his window, still climbing up the stairs. She immediately picked up the phone, but before he could finish explaining the situation, the guy fell from the building. He hit the ground hard. Even his head was dropped without a trace. The victim's name was Paul, was a professional athlete. He had conquered dozens of 100-meter buildings with his bare hands. He wanted to celebrate his daughter's birthday by climbing to the top this time. Unexpectedly, there was an accident. The coroner conducted a preliminary autopsy, found that the victim's face had abrasion marks, but both hands and nails were intact. It proves that the victim did not struggle when she fell. The detective suspected that it might be a suicide, but who would try to call the police before committing suicide? Obviously, he saw something while he was climbing. The inspector took the lift all the way up. He came to the last windowsill, stained with non-slip powder. The edge of the windowsill was still stained with blood. It seems that the victim fell from here, and there are still a few fist marks on the window glass. Maybe the victim was trying to warn the people inside. The room inside was a conference room for a company, but the detective found a used pregnancy test in the trash and under the table, a signature pen from the hotel across the street. All these signs indicate that something must have happened in this conference room. The scene was immediately cordoned off and carefully searched. Forensics quickly extracted palm prints from the table, also found a blood-sucking mosquito, and the inspector found a large amount of blood spatter on each of the two chairs. On each of the two chairs, the detective found a large amount of spattered blood and gunshot residue. It appears that the victim may have probably came across a murder. He fell in a panic, but there was no body found at the scene. No blood was found on the floor. There was a long scratch. Detectives followed the scrape marks. Sure enough, the body of the deceased was found in a doorway. The victim's name was John, was the co-founder of the company, and on his neck, he also happened to have mosquito bites on his neck. But mosquitoes don't bite dead people. This should have been left before he died. Then the mosquitoes found in the conference room. It is likely that the mosquito found in the conference room also bit the murderer. The mosquitoes were immediately sent to the lab. The head of the company also arrived in a hurry. When he learned of the death of his partner John, the other party showed a face of shock, but not a bit sad. He only said his office was downstairs. He didn't usually meet with John. There was nothing I could do to help the agent, but John's assistant said. They both met with the boss yesterday afternoon. John even took his pen and went to the conference room to sign papers, the same one the detective found. The assistant suggested that the detective should investigate the head of the company because he and John have been having a bad relationship and wants to leave the company to work alone. Now that John is dead, the biggest beneficiary is also the person in charge of their own. On the other hand, John's wife came to the police station to claim the body. She said the pregnancy test in the trash was hers, but these days, due to his pregnancy, she had been staying at her sister's house. She said John's character was very bad. There were many people on the outside who wanted to kill him, but the only person most suspected is the partner, because after John's death, according to the contract, control of the company would automatically revert to the partners. But the partner was quickly cleared by the detectives because he had been with his secretary since morning. He didn't have time to commit the crime. On the other hand, forensics finally tested the blood in mosquito's body. In addition to John's DNA, there is also a male DNA. This made the inspector suddenly remember the assistant, who kept tickling during the visit. Sure enough, the DNA of the assistant matched perfectly, but this only proves that he was bitten by mosquitoes. It doesn't prove he's the killer. There was no way to know what happened inside the room. The inspector decided to break through from the outside. He looked for the video footage taken by the onlookers. After repeatedly reviewing it, he suddenly found the moments before John fell. There was a flash of fire in the conference room window from the shooting. This means that the window was open, but there were hundreds of people downstairs. Wouldn't such a murder be too public? The inspector came back to the scene. Through the window, he immediately had an answer. He came across to the hotel room. Inside was the woman who booked the presidential suite, and John's assistant happened to be here as well. The woman said she was John's ex-wife. She came here to attend the funeral. The assistant also just arrived, but the inspector had already checked the room records. The day before the murder, the ex-wife was already living in this room, and the location of the room. The reason why the room was located directly across from John's company, it was for this long-planned murder life. Hearing the agent's reasoning, the woman instantly fell to the ground and confessed everything in her heart. She accompanied John all the way to work, from once having nothing to the present success and fame. But all these years of love, John disliked her worthless. Not only did he force her to divorce, he even gave birth to the child he dreamed of with someone else. To think that what she had fought for was taken away by another woman. She was furious, and the assistant also came to the door at this time. He was already dissatisfied with his boss. Accidentally discovered the other party's life insurance. The beneficiary is also his ex-wife. So he took the initiative to contact the woman, conspired to kill his boss to share the billion-dollar fortune. But to his surprise, Paul, who loved to lie on the window, saw this scene. So he shot Paul. He killed him by mistake, but what he thought would be seamless. But finally, by greed stabbed, the case is now clear.